Regular school teachers as well as homeschooling moms may have to teach a child with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, also known as ADHD. According to the American Psychiatric Association, about 3 to 5% of all students in the United States struggle with ADHD. If you need assistance working with students with ADHD, this video is for you. Students with ADHD can display symptoms of inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. As the child exhibits behavior associated with ADHD, they may struggle with academics as well as with forming relationships. Additionally, no two students are the same, so a successful teacher needs to approach each student with a three-pronged strategy. 3 components of successful programs for children with ADHD addresses 3 areas of intervention. First of all, the academic instruction. Secondly, behavioral interventions. And thirdly, classroom accommodations. Welcome to Ruth's Straight Talk, the channel designed to help you, your students, and your children live fuller lives, become lifelong learners, and grow into the awesome human beings you were designed to be. I'm Cynthia Ruth. In this video, I will introduce the areas of intervention that you need to know about ADHD students, as well as looking into the deeper academic instruction. In other words, in other videos, I will address the 2 components, behavioral intervention and classroom accommodation. Also, don't miss my bonus tip at the end of this video that will help your ADHD student to perform well in class. So let's get right to it. It is important to note here that the techniques presented in this video also improve the learning of students who do not have ADHD. And even though they have been used particularly with elementary age children, they have been found to work effectively with older students as well. So let's take a look at effective academic instructions. I should also add here that these strategies will work across all subject areas. Since students with ADHD need close attention and bite-sized instructions, it is important to break the academics into 3 sections. First of all, introduction of the lesson. Secondly, conducting the lesson. And third, concluding the lesson. In this video, I will share techniques to introduce the lesson, and in my next videos, I will discuss conducting the lesson and concluding the lesson. So let's get into introduction of the lesson. Students with ADHD need a highly structured environment in order to be successful, and that can be difficult to achieve if students are off task, in and out of their seats, and generally disruptive. So what should a teacher do? All students, even students with ADHD, are more inclined to participate in the lesson if he knows that he is part of the process. So, how can the teacher make him a part of the process? Here are some ways. When the teacher introduces the lesson, she explains what she wants the children to learn in the current lesson and places these skills and knowledge in the context of previous lessons. 2. The effective teacher also explains how the student should behave during the lesson. For example, during silent reading, the students need to be quiet and focus on their reading. During seat work, the students may whisper to their colleagues, but mostly concentrate on doing their seat work. During role playing, the students can follow along the reading as the other students do the role playing. Number 3, the teacher prepares students for the day's lesson by summarizing the various activities planned. Explain, for example, that a review of the previous lesson will be followed by new information that will be a group activity as well as independent work. Number 4, the teacher needs to review the previous lesson. For example, remind the students that yesterday's lesson was about, say, gravitational force. Discuss several examples of gravitational force before moving on to that particular day's lesson. The teacher then sets learning expectations for the student. She explains to the student what students are expected to learn during the lesson. This is also the goal of the lesson. For example, she might explain that during the language arts lesson, they would read Tom Sawyer and study the new vocabulary words in chapters 1, 2, and 3. The next point is describe how the students are expected to behave during the lesson. For example, she would tell the students that they may talk quietly as they do their seat work, and they should raise their hand if they need to get the teacher's attention. The next step would be identify all the materials that the students will need during the lesson, rather than leaving them to figure out on their own the materials they'll be required to use. For example, specify to the children that they need their journals and pencils for journal writing, or they need crayons and scissors and colored paper for the art project. Next, she would explain additional resources. Tell the students how to obtain help in mastering the lesson. For example, refer the children to a particular page in the textbook for guidance on completing that particular worksheet. For the bonus strategy, I will touch briefly on conducting the lesson and concluding the lesson. The teacher, when conducting the lesson, should simplify instructions. The simpler the expectations communicated to an ADHD student, the more likely it is that he will comprehend and complete them in a timely and productive manner. Use differentiated instructions. Students with ADHD cannot sit through a long lecture. You will probably lose them after the first 10 minutes. So in order to hold their attention, you need to shake things up periodically. For example, you could maybe do 10 minutes of lecture, followed by 10 minutes of questions and answers regarding the lesson. By the way, don't take "I don't know" answers from students. "I don't know" is not acceptable an answer. Neither is yes or no. The student need to respond to questions, need to answer questions with some input that has taken place during the lesson. The student must give an answer even if it's a wrong answer. If it's a wrong answer, the teacher will know how to address, to reteach that material. It is here that you address misunderstandings by reteaching the areas of misunderstanding. Then reinforce the instruction by maybe breaking up into groups to discuss ways to implement the lesson in real life. This can even be followed by role playing. Time permitting, you could do some role playing and even individual seat work. When it comes to concluding the lesson, the teacher should keep in mind that transitions from one lesson or a class to another is particularly difficult for the student with ADHD. When they are preparing for transitions, these children are more likely to respond if you explain step by step what they need to do, and they will stay on task. You can prepare the student for closing the class by recapping the lesson, maybe just 5 minutes, assigning homework, and be sure to give them enough time to take out their agenda book and to write down the homework assignment. The teacher should also walk around the classroom and make sure that the assignment is written completely or correctly. Give the students time to replace the materials that they used in class, and present each child with an exit slip. So what is an exit slip? It is a small piece of paper or a sticky note, or perhaps a 3x5 card with one question. For example, what I learned today. All the students must answer that question as they leave the class. This will allow you as the teacher to address further misconceptions during the next class. So there you have it, several tips to help your ADHD student. If this video has helped you, please leave me a comment at the bottom of the screen. Also, if you have a story, a tip, a strategy, a question, or just some advice that you would like me to share with my audiences, please also leave me a comment at the bottom of the screen. Click on these videos above for more awesome information on education and parenting. As always, thank you so much for visiting with us at rootstraighttalk.com. It's been a pleasure working with you. Happy learning and goodbye.